The urgent HOA gathering at Pinebrook Meadows Community Hall was already a chaotic scene when I stepped inside. At the helm was Brenda Cartwright, the self-declared queen of the neighborhood, wielding her trusty rolling pin as if it were a judge's gavel. Her face had flushed to a shade of crimson, and the bulging veins in her neck seemed ready to burst. With a thunderous crack, Brenda slammed her rolling pin against the table, sending Mrs. Caldwell's teacup into a small hop. "Daniel Rivers must join our association immediately," she screeched, her tone sharp enough to set off car alarms a block away. "He's been residing here for half a year, enjoying our facilities, using our roads, and adding to our community profile without contributing a penny in dues." I rose deliberately, relishing the moment I had orchestrated for months. The manila folder in my grasp felt weighted with years of evidence. "Actually, Brenda," I began, my words slicing through the shocked murmurs, "for the past 5 years, you've been living on my property." The silence was delicious. Brenda's rolling pin slipped from her grip, thudding onto the floor. Board member Frank Duggan muttered something that should have been censored, and Brenda's complexion drained from beet red to ghostly pale. Let's rewind to understand how we reached this satisfying showdown. I'm Daniel Rivers, 52 years old, a retired land surveyor who thought he'd found his haven when my late grandfather bequeathed me a 10-acre woodland lot on the outskirts of Cedar Hollow. Surrounded by copy-paste subdivisions and strip plazas, my patch of towering oaks and winding trails remained a peaceful relic of the past. With decades spent fine-tuning blueprints and property grids, I prized precision in boundaries. After years of managing urban development chaos, I craved serenity. Thus, I constructed a cozy 2,000-square-foot home on the far end of my lot, ensuring privacy while maintaining road access. Opposite my sanctuary sprawled Pinebrook Meadows, a uniform assembly of 50 identical homes, overseen with iron-fisted pettiness by Brenda Cartwright. Brenda, who dressed like a real estate brochure from 1989, favored garish blazers, skin-tight skirts, and an industrial-strength hairspray cloud that probably violated EPA regulations. Brenda had secured her HOA presidency through a dubious election where she conveniently stood unopposed, with half the ballots penned in her own handwriting. She ruled the HOA like her personal fiefdom, inventing new guidelines faster than anyone could challenge them. The original 10-page handbook had ballooned into a 120-page tome dictating everything from acceptable porch decor to the precise hue of mulch allowed. I was still unpacking when Brenda strutted up my gravel drive, clipboard in tow, as though auditioning for neighborhood patrol commander. "Mr. Rivers," she announced without preamble, "Brenda Cartwright, president of Pinebrook Meadows HOA. I'm here to collect your initial membership fee of $1,500, plus 6 months of retroactive dues." Setting down my box, I gave her my best deadpan look. "I believe there's been an error. My property isn't part of your HOA." Brenda's eye twitched. A sign I'd soon learn meant she was entering what I called Brenda battle mode. She rifled through her papers with the urgency of a game show contestant. "Impossible. You're clearly within our community visual zone. Article 5, Section D specifies that any property visible from member homes falls under HOA jurisdiction." "Visual zone?" I asked, genuinely intrigued by her creative interpretation of land use law. "If we can see your property, it affects our aesthetics, therefore you must comply," she said with a straight face. "Oh, and those birdhouses need to go. They're not HOA-approved designs and disrupt our earth-tone harmony." The birdhouses were handcrafted by my grandfather, housing generations of bluebirds. My jaw tightened, but my tone stayed civil. "Mrs. Cartwright, while I admire your dedication, my property isn't under your HOA's governance. I own it, free and clear." Brenda's face cycled through a vivid color spectrum before she thrust a paper at me. "This is your first warning. Noncompliance will lead to fines, liens, and restricted use of communal amenities." "What amenities?" I asked, baffled. "The roads, Mr. Rivers. We maintain them." "You mean the public county road my taxes fund?" She stormed off in a flurry of indignant mutters about rebellious newcomers and declining property values. That was only the opening salvo. Over the following months, Brenda's antics escalated from irritating to absurd. Weekly violation notices accused me of offenses ranging from excessive gravel displacement to unauthorized wildlife activity, the latter issued after she spotted deer in my yard. She attempted to fine me $400 for cultivating a non-standard natural habitat. She even complained about the supposed glare aggression from my solar panels, which were angled away from her subdivision. Each notice received a polite, Typed response, I am not a member of Pinebrook Meadows HOA. Please cease further contact. But Brenda wasn't content with passive aggression. One morning, I awoke to the hum of a mower and found her trimming a 20-foot strip of my roadside property. When confronted, she claimed it had been redesignated as a community greenway and required HOA standard maintenance. You can't just claim my land, I said, struggling to maintain composure. It's no longer yours, she retorted smugly. Per Article 8, any unkempt land adjacent to HOA property becomes communal beautification space. You don't create laws, Brenda. I don't create them, she said, revving the mower. I enforce them for community harmony. I went inside and dialed 2 numbers, my attorney and my old surveying colleague, Jack Morrison. Brenda had just declared war on the wrong guy. Jack arrived the following week, and together we pored over original land grants, conducted fresh surveys, and compared notes with county plats. What we uncovered was pure gold. Daniel, you seeing this? Jack grinned, showing me the overlay. That's a 35-foot discrepancy on the west boundary, which includes Brenda's prized lot, her patio garden, and her HOA gazebo, I noted. A decades-old surveying error had pushed the development's boundary lines onto my grandfather's land. Brenda's corner lot, and several community amenities, were all sitting on my acreage. My grandfather had known. In his files, I found a note, they're harmless until they aren't. If they push back harder. Brenda had certainly pushed. I spent a month gathering ammunition, certified surveys, land grant records, documented harassment, and legal evaluations. Then Brenda made her fatal move. She organized an emergency HOA meeting, labeling it, addressing the Daniel Rivers threat. Flyers were plastered across Pinebrook Meadows, detailing agenda items like, forced compliance, and, defensive measures against non-conforming neighbors. I decided it was time for a reckoning. Which brings us back to Pinebrook's community hall, where Brenda now stood speechless, her rolling pin abandoned on the floor. That's not possible, she stammered. I've lived here for 15 years. This is my home. I have a deed. You do, I agreed, spreading survey documents across the table, but it's for a property line plotted incorrectly 30 years ago. Your actual boundary ends here, I pointed, which puts a significant portion of your lot on my land. The room erupted in murmurs. Frank Duggan, usually Brenda's staunchest ally, suddenly appeared very interested in the floor tiles. This is outrageous, Brenda shrieked. You can't just fabricate paperwork and steal my property. I'm not stealing anything, I said calmly. I'm correcting a historical error. You've been utilizing my land rent-free for 5 years. Dennis Harper, a retired magistrate known for his no-nonsense approach, stood up from the back. These documents are authentic county records, he said after reviewing them. If Mr. Rivers' claims are accurate, this is a legal matter of boundary dispute, not an HOA issue. Brenda's face twisted in disbelief. Dennis, you're on the board. You're supposed to back me up. I uphold the law, Brenda, Dennis said coolly. Your HOA authority stops where property lines begin. I pulled out my next document. This is a formal trespass notice and a demand for 5 years back rent for land usage, $2,500 per month. A gasp rippled through the audience. Someone did the math aloud, $150,000. Alternatively, I offered, you can purchase the parcel for $125,000, or enter into a lease agreement at $1,200 a month, under strict terms. Brenda, gripping the table as if it were a life raft, asked, what terms? 1. You immediately cease all enforcement actions against my property. 2. You acknowledge in writing that my land is outside your jurisdiction. 3. You eliminate any mention of my property from HOA records. And 4. I paused, you erect a sign on your lot stating, no HOA jurisdiction beyond this point. The room went silent. This is blackmail, Brenda hissed. Dennis cleared his throat. This is lawful negotiation. You've overstepped, Brenda, and now there are consequences. I'll sue, she bellowed. Please do, I smiled. I have every document, notice, and trespass incident recorded. You'll be facing fraud charges. Predictably, Brenda spiraled into a week-long campaign of denial, distributing bogus legal notices, and organizing a protest that drew exactly 2 participants, her brother-in-law and a confused neighbor who thought it was a bake sale. Ultimately, I filed suit. In court, Judge Elaine Whitaker, a seasoned adjudicator known for dismantling frivolous property claims, presided over the case. Brenda's lawyer, a jittery young man named Alan, fumbled through baseless arguments of community sovereignty, which the judge quickly dismantled. Ms. Cartwright, Judge Whitaker said sternly, your WA rules do not supersede county property laws. The evidence is irrefutable. Brenda's theatrics peaked as she stood, arms flailing, shouting about maintaining neighborhood standards. The judge was unmoved. The ruling: Brenda owed me $42,000 in back rent, plus legal fees. She had 45 days to either purchase the disputed land or sign the lease. The judge also referred the case to the DA for potential fraud charges. Brenda fainted. The aftermath: swift and brutal. The WA board ousted Brenda in a landslide vote, rescinded her self-appointed titles, and scaled back the bloated bylaws. Brenda eventually pled guilty to misdemeanor fraud, receiving 2 years probation and a community service sentence, specifically barred from any WA-related activities. For the first time, Brenda had no rebuttal. No declarations of WA supremacy. Just silence, and the unmistakable sting of a well-deserved reckoning.